the martial arts analogy. Can we as weightlifters learn something from those that spend many years and decades and most of their life training in martial arts? Now, I myself am a black belt in Taekwondo, and I trained for about 5 years to achieve that grade. And what I want to do here is try and explain how I think weightlifting should be approached by those that are new to the sport. If you imagine in weightlifting, we don't need to imagine, this is what happens. You go into the gym, you get taught how to snatch, clean and jerk, and commonly within the same session, sometimes the following week or the following session, or very soon after you've got started, you start loading the bar. That to me makes no sense. If you take a martial art, the first session in, you go in probably without any suit, any dobok, any gi, whatever martial art and the terminology they want to use. And after a few weeks of doing some bits and pieces and learning some of the basic movements, you then decide, right, I want to continue with this, so you invest in that suit. You get a white belt. You're now at the bottom of the ladder, you're on the lowest grade, and you've got to start learning the martial art. You've got to start developing your skill set to be able to progress up the ranks. Now, it takes several months in a martial art to go to your first grading, to then be assessed on your level of competency, and to then be promoted. And that promotion continues over months, over years, until you rise through the ranks, rise through the colour belts, and achieve black belt. At the point where you achieve black belt, you're considered to be a first degree, and actually you're back at the bottom of the ladder and you're now on the lowest end of the black belt gradings. So as you can see with martial arts, we start down here and we practice a certain skill set, get assessed. If you pass that level of competency, you move on to the next level. But yeah, in weightlifting, we come in, we learn the basics, and we think suddenly we're experts and we can start loading. That doesn't happen. Now, if you approach weightlifting with the same kind of mindset that you would approach a martial art, go into the gym, learn the basics. And by the basics, I'm talking about an overhead squat, a snatch balance, maybe a front squat position, a hang clean. If we approached it and said, right, these are all of the exercises that weightlifters do, and there could be a list as long as 20, 30 different exercises, depending on the coach and the gym that you're in. Let's look at these ones as the basics. You spend then several weeks learning how to do those movements, unloaded, no weights. And over that period of time, there's no pressure on you to lift heavy, so you have time to focus on those basics. You have time to master or get close to mastering those movements. At that point, there's some kind of assessment. Yes, well done, you tick this off, you can do that movement really well. Let's progress you. Then we bring in a slightly more intricate detail. Maybe we add to the coaching points. Maybe we look more closely at key positions. And if you think of it as a skill set that you develop, then you move on to the next level, then the next level, and so on. By the time that you've been assessed as having really good competency across the board, then you're ready to start progressing. Then you're ready to start adding the weight. And at that point, it won't be technique that holds you back. It will be this or your physical ability. So I want you to just take a moment, step back from where you're at and look at all of the different movements associated with weightlifting and ask yourself, are you really competent, confident, and moving with precision every single time you address the bar? Every single time you do a snatch balance, are you landing in a deep squat position at speed confidently? If not, then why are you progressing and starting snatching? Once you've learned how to do snatch balance really well, then progress to hang snatch. Now ask yourself the question, am I doing a hang snatch with precision, with control, with consistency, every single repetition on just an empty bar? If the answer is yes, and you are doing that session after session, then you're ready to start building and start progressing the weight. If not, why would you start loading? That to me is absolutely crazy and asking for injury. Hold back. Get to grips with those movements. Seek advice. Reach out for help if you need it. But only when you're moving really well with a hang snatch would I then teach you how to snatch from the floor. When we then learn from the floor, you're going to be spending time addressing that first phase from the floor to mid-thigh. What happens? How do you get there? Are you moving with the right muscle groups firing? Are you in the right position? If the answer is yes, and you're able to control the movement, every rep looks the same, then start loading. But until you've passed through all of that, I would encourage you to stay off the weight, keep drilling, drilling, drilling. Get yourself moving really, really well. Fast, safely, consistently. If you're doing all of those things, then you're ready. If you're in your first week of training or your first session and a coach asks you to load the bar, you want to be standing back and going, whoa, hang on a minute. This is quite a complex skill set that you're asking me to do. No, back off. And if a coach is pushing you to do that too early before you're ready, then now you've got the understanding of what I think you should be able to do before you can progress. So here's a quick rundown. If you are learning to snatch, I would be looking at mastering the overhead squat, mastering snatch balance, mastering a hang snatch. Only then would I progress you to lifting from the floor. When you can lift from the floor really well, then okay, maybe you can start playing with the weights. But then next level would be to look at other exercises like snatch from blocks, snatch from deficit, snatch deadlifts. There are a lot of other exercises that you can start building to assist your ability to snatch well. Let's look at a clean. Can you get into a good front rack position? Can you do a front squat? Can you then do a hang clean? Can you do a clean from the floor? All of these progressions are what I would take my lifters through every time I have a new lifter into the gym. If we're looking at a jerk, I spend many sessions off the bar before I even introduce a bar. I want my lifter moving with precision without any load. Can you dip and drive straight? If you can't dip and drive straight, what the heck are you doing even introducing a bar? Do you have a really nice straight position as you dip and drive? If you do, then we start looking at a split position. Does your split position look the same every single time you go into it? Or are you wobbling? Are you crossing your feet? Are you unbalanced? If you've got all of those precision, the movement's really, really good and they're very, very precise every single lift, then introduce an empty bar. Can you keep that consistency on an empty bar? If you can, then you're ready to start progressing. But look, that's my advice. Think of it as a martial art analogy. Compare yourself to somebody doing a martial art who is going through the grades. Have you gone through the grades with your Olympic lifts? If you have, well done. You shouldn't ever be held back technically. If you haven't, yeah, you may progress early in the first few months, but expect there to be a time where you plateau. The time where you plateau, unfortunately, is the time where most people then go back to basics. It's harder to make changes technically to somebody who already has bad habits ingrained. I'll let you be the decision maker and decide how you think you should progress.